Today, Bitcoin's in the red as the first half of 2023 draws to a close. A blockchain lobbying group calls for SEC Chair Gary Gensler to recuse himself from crypto regulation. And Brock Pierce, chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation, breaks down the impact of major financial institutions moving into crypto. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos. Crypto prices mixed as we close out the week, the quarter, and first half of the year. As of noon Eastern, Bitcoin dropped more than 1%, but still traded just above the $30,000 mark. Ether was flat, still trading around $1,850, and Solana rose by about 3.5%. The move higher for Solana comes even as another business moves to delist it. First it was Robinhood, and this time it's Revolut. We reached out to the fintech company and they told us that U.S. customers have until September 18th to hold and sell that token, as well as Polygon's, Matic, and Cardano's ADA tokens. Now, the firm notified its U.S. customers yesterday that effective immediately, they can no longer buy the three altcoins. Worth noting here, those tokens were specifically mentioned in the SEC's recent lawsuits. The Revolut notice to customers said the firm is making the move because their U.S. crypto services provider decided to delist these tokens due to the changing laws and regulations in the U.S. Even though Solana might be facing more scrutiny, the token is still up 85% for the first half of 2023, while Bitcoin is up 80% and Ether is 54% higher. Meanwhile, over on Wall Street, the S&P is up 15% in the first half of the year. Okay, let's get to some other stories you should know. First up, U.S. lobbying group, the Blockchain Association, thinks that SEC Chair Gary Gensler should back away from crypto regulation. In an open letter published on Thursday, the lobbying group said Gensler should recuse himself from digital assets regulation. It argues that his claim that everything other than Bitcoin is a security means that he won't approach the issue with an open mind. The open letter comes just after Coinbase responded to the SEC's lawsuit against it in court, saying the agency lacked authority to police its platform. We reached out to the SEC for a response to the Blockchain Association's letter, but haven't yet heard back. Next up, a new study from the Atlantic Council found that 130 countries are looking into CBDCs. That figure represents 98% of the global economy. And all G20 countries, with the exception of Argentina, were in advanced stages of development. The report notes that here in the U.S., CBDC development has stalled, but 11 other countries around the world have already launched a digital version of their currency, while the EU, India, and Brazil are on track to launch pilot programs. Last, Canadian lawmakers are calling for a clearer national strategy for blockchain. In a report by the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry and Technology, lawmakers recommended the government recognize blockchain as an emerging industry and protect self-custody as a way to safeguard customers. Lawmakers also recommended consultation with provinces to build a national strategy for blockchain and regulation. Canada has been stepping up its crypto regulation after the industry meltdown last year, including banning leverage for Canadian customers and enforcing custody requirements. Now, those tighter rules have already led some services, like Binance, to exit the country. All right, on to our main story. Bitcoin Foundation Chairman Brock Pierce has been involved in crypto since the very beginning and sat down with Crypto World's Talia Kaplan to discuss his take on recent developments in the space. Pierce weighs in on signs of confidence in crypto from financial institutions, the impact of regulatory uncertainty in the U.S., and whether he believes more crypto companies will move overseas.
You achieved tremendous success in digital assets as a crypto pioneer in the early days, funding several companies, including Mastercoin and Coinbase, just to name a few. In fact, Forbes named you as one of the richest people in crypto a few years ago, with an estimated net worth of $700 million to $1 billion. So given your background, I'm curious to get your take on recent developments in crypto, specifically the burst of institutional interest. In fact, BlackRock filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF, opening the doors for other financial institutions like Valkyrie, Invesco, and WisdomTree. And EDX Markets, a crypto exchange backed by Fidelity, Citadel, and Charles Schwab, recently launched trading in 4 crypto assets, including Bitcoin and Ether. Over the weekend, I actually saw a headline which argued that Wall Street is crypto's new savior. Do you agree with that statement?
I think it's interesting that we're really seeing this adoption from, call it, your major institutional players. We've been watching this through cycle after cycle, but now, I mean, it's at the top of the heap. BlackRock launching this ETF. It's something that the industry has been trying to do for nearly a decade. Hopefully, they get the white glove treatment. Hopefully, BlackRock can get done what we could not. And so it's clearly had a major impact on the market. Bitcoin was under 25,000, and now it's up around 31. So I think the market's happy. Everyone's happy. I think this is a great thing. You've had Terra Luna's implosion, SBF and FTX and BlockFi and Celsius. I mean, it's been a really rough market. So grateful for a wave of good news.
What do you think about this burst of institutional interest amid the backdrop of the SEC's intensified crackdown on crypto exchanges like Coinbase and Binance? What does that signal? The fact that these financial institutions still feel compelled to move into crypto amid that backdrop?
Well, I mean, I think the issue was that people didn't know the rules, right? There's a lot of regulatory ambiguity. And companies like Coinbase have done a very good job of trying to engage with the regulators, consistently attempting to get good guidance. The industry clearly did need some cleanup. There have been some bad actors, as we've seen. I think that the SEC's response here might be a little overboard, and it's definitely having a negative impact.
What do you make of Coinbase's situation in particular? What do you think is going to happen there? Even before Coinbase was officially charged, CEO Brian Armstrong indicated that he might move Coinbase's headquarters overseas because of the lack of clarity, regulatory clarity here in the U.S. Do you think that's going to happen now that Coinbase was in fact officially charged?
I think this is terrible. I mean, imagine what the U.S. would be like if the internet wasn't invented here or stood up here. We're living in this fourth industrial revolution. It's imperative that we are leaders in the world, that we're leaders in the new financial system. We're leaders in all these areas. And so I'm very concerned by it. And I hope there's at least a plan that if you don't want Coinbase to own it, hopefully it's the Fidelities and the Charles Schwabs and the BlackRocks. I mean, I don't know what the internal strategy is. I hope there is one, and that there's real thought behind these decisions, because it does affect all of our future. And, these are good companies. Again, Brian Armstrong and Coinbase, they've attempted to do everything right. They're not bad actors. And so I hope that we do not lose our position as leaders as a result of these decisions.
You mentioned that there is regulatory ambiguity here in the U.S., and it's hard for crypto companies to operate here because of that. Meantime, abroad, we're seeing regulatory advancements. In fact, just a few months ago, EU lawmakers approved the world's first comprehensive framework for crypto regulation. And after that, we saw several crypto companies move offshore, expand offshore, and entirely move offshore in some cases. Do you anticipate that's going to continue to happen because of the regulatory advancements overseas and the lack of regulatory clarity here in the U.S.?
Yeah, and we've seen that. We live in a very digital world, right? And COVID definitely accelerated this in terms of our ability to work from anywhere. And there's a regulatory arbitrage, happening here. Governments that say we are in favor of innovation. We want innovation, to happen in our country. You see people move there, whether it be, a bunch of us that have moved to Puerto Rico. That wasn't from regulatory arbitrage, but take El Salvador. President Bukele has made that a place where people are going, and where government says we are in favor of the future. We like innovation. We want to create regulatory clarity, and we are here to work with the private sector. It leads to positive results.
You ran for president back in 2020 as an independent. So I'm curious to know what prompted you to run back then, and if you have any plans to run again in 2024.
Well, when we talk about a blockchain, right, and we talk about cryptocurrency, it's a ledger, but it's also a system of governance, right? What is our primary system of governance? That thing that governs over us, it's our government. And so as someone that experiments with systems of governance and studies governance, it would make sense that I would eventually go spend time in our government. I announced on July 4th of election year in 2020, which means there's no way to win. It was a reconnaissance mission. I wanted to understand all the ways in which the system or game is rigged. If you're running as a Democrat for a Republican, you have all that existing infrastructure and rails. You really just need to be a candidate. But if you actually want to try and run as a third party, you don't have that infrastructure. And so there's a tremendous amount of learning that has to occur. And so that was a trial run so that I could, either as me or someone else, do it successfully in the future. And so I'm very involved in the election cycle. And as an independent, we don't have primaries. So there's a very different calendar that we run from. The election for an independent is really election year, because you don't want to. You want to see what's going to happen with the two major parties first. Who are the candidates going to be, so that you can choose your tactics accordingly. Kind of amazing. 2016, 2020, 2024. What an unusual world we found ourselves in. But important, I think, for everybody. The future is going to happen to you, or it's going to happen with you. Your participation is needed.
So do you think you will be putting your hat in the mix in 2024?
We'll see. I'm always ready. I'm ready to go.
It sounds like a strong possibility.
I did it once so that I could do it again.
Pierce also discussed his vision for a digitized future and what he believes it'll take to get over crypto's so-called image problem. You'll be able to check out the full interview over at cnbc.com/cryptoworld. Okay, that's all for this week, but we will be back again on Monday, and we'll see you then.